Hello class, welcome to Mr. Jensen's blog again. I know we discussed NBT.3a at the end of class previously, and I'd like to discuss a little bit more in this blog post and give you some examples of how to meet this standard. The standard is to read and write decimals to the thousandths place, and specifically using three different forms. Of course, those forms we have some experience with as well. Number base 10, or base number 10 numerals, is just the normal way that we write numbers. So for example, this number right here is in base 10 numerals. Number names, I'm going to talk a little bit about how some students make some mistakes when they write in number names or when they even think in number names. And then lastly, expanded form, which is, I think, the least experience we are as a class. So again, the example of base 10 numerals is when we write numbers that are just like this. So this is our base 10 numeral example. And I would read this as 21 and 475 thousandths. And the reason that is because the 5 here at the end is in the thousandths place. It's 3 places over from the decimal point. So I would read this as 475 thousandths. And a lot of students don't read it that way. They read it as 21.475. And that's a common misconception that students make. And it actually hinders our understanding of what the number actually represents when we read it that way. We really do need to recognize that this is in the thousandths place. So this is 475 thousandths of a whole number. If we were to take another number 1 right here and divide it into 1,000 pieces, then we're actually talking about 475 of them, of those 1,000 pieces. And so that's when we write number names, that's what we have to actually write. We have to write to the thousandths place. So I would write this number name here as 21 and the reason I use the word and is because when I read a number, the decimal point always makes an and sign or an and word. And this is in the thousandths place, and there's 475 of them, so I would say 475 thousandths. Okay, now expanded form is a little bit more complicated. So expanded form is when we take down this number and we break it apart into the different pieces based on its place value. So I've color coded this number just specifically for this reason. The black 2 right here is in the tens place. So really what that is, it's not a 2, it's actually 2 times 10 because it's in the tens place. And that's actually worth 20. That's where we get the 20 from. Now, the blue number 1 here is in the ones place. So it actually is the number 1 times whatever place it's in, which is the ones place. That's where we get the 1 from. So it's equal to 20 and 1. The red 4 is not worth 4. It's actually in the tenths place. So it's actually worth 4 times 1/10. And I'm going to write it as a fraction here, 4 times 1/10, which is equal to 0.4, or 4/10. We would read this as 4/10. And then the orange 7 here, the orange 7 is in the hundredth spot, so it's actually worth 7 times 1/100th. And I would write it like this, 7 times 1/100th. And that's actually equal to decimal point, a 0, and a 7. And we would read this as 7 hundredths. And then this auburn 5, I'm going to call this color auburn. This auburn 5 is actually in the thousandths place, and that's the actual point to this, or that's the extent of this this standard, is that we're writing and reading numbers to the thousandths place. So it's the thousandths place. So it's actually 5 times 1/1000th. And if I do that, if I perform that multiplication, that's a decimal point, 2 zeros, and a 5, and I would read this as 5 thousandths. So when we add this all up, in the end, we actually get our number. That's the point of expanded form. I've expanded it by all of its places. When I add the value of each place together, then I get my original 21 and 475 thousandths. Now, key to the expanded form is that we don't always write it like this. This is a good way of understanding it, but we don't actually write it like that. when we have this number, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy this over. When we have this number and we want to write it in expanded form, most often we'll write it like this. We'll write it as expanded form. We'll write it in expanded form with parentheses. We'll say that it's 21, which is 2 times 10, plus the 1 times 1, because it's in the ones place, plus the 4 times 1/10, plus the 7 times 1/100 in parentheses, and then plus the 5 times 1/1000. And we've talked about the order of operations, and that we know that when we have operations that are inside parentheses, we have to perform those first. So we would perform all these operations and add them together, and when we equal them together, when we perform all the additions and the multiplications, we're going to get this number right here, and that's the expanded form of it. And so I hope in looking at both this right here, the way expanded looks, and expanded form on the previous slide, I hope you get a better understanding of what the actual number in each place looks like. Okay, so as an added bonus for today, if you come into class tomorrow and write the word, let's go with bass drum on the board with your name, you'll get extra credit. So look forward to going and practicing some guided practice with you, and then getting some independent practice and being able to meet the standard. We'll see you in class.